Oh, okay, it is on. Now, okay, meeting's called to order. Are there any announcements that anybody has to make? Okay. Oh, yes, there's an announcement I have to make. The adult literacy book is out and available for those who would like it. Yes? I can't, can you go to the microphone? I can't hear you.
Okay, so we want to speak about Roseland School.
Yeah.
And so the reason I'm actually want to speak and not trying to be rude, totally respecting, is that my daughter got sick right before I got here. So
Okay,
that's
you're
why.
coming up next.
Okay.
So everybody see this?
Thank you.
It's a literacy book, Impressions. It's a collection of the writings from the adult literacy program at the Sonoma County Library. All righty, so that's available now. Okay.
She's going to talk about an agenda item.
So it's 12.3, and if you want to take her, I want you to make it clear it's an exception, because there are a lot of other people here to talk about Roseland.
Okay.
It's item 12.3, but you
Okay.
want to make an exception.
Yeah, I will for her. Okay, the woman who wanted to speak. Okay, because it is an item on the agenda, which is 12.3, we have to wait for discussions about Roseland until then, but because her daughter's sick, I'm going to make an exception to the rule. For her only, yeah.
So I am a concerned citizen in Roseland. I'm also a mother, and I take my daughter to the library every single week there. She goes to preschool once a week, but I can't afford preschool all the time. Last time we went, the librarian read to her. We did projects, and they worked on her cognitive and fine motor skills. They also worked on helping them, their imagination, confidence, and so much more. She picked out a book that she knows where the area where the Disney, her favorite books are, and I read to her. And then she read to the dog. They had more activities. We were there for like 4 hours. We were so happy and sad of thinking of losing the majority of our books and all our events. No more librarian reading to our children. No more reading to the dog. We're losing so much. It's easy to judge us and say, go down to the downtown library. Lots of parents don't have transportation. So easy to say, to get on the bus. In reality, it's a hardship to take 2-3 children on the bus, not to say how much extra time out of our day that we have to take, time that we could have been spending in our community library. I thought I knew what the importance of education was. My child I have lots of learning disabilities, and I was left behind. I struggled in school, and I'm just trying to give a head start to my child. And I thought I knew what the importance of education was until I attended to the school Avance. I saw how the brain works and how studies have proven that if you don't have enough stimulation, physically the brain does not grow. So it's such less growth. It's like bones. You can look okay, but your bones can be not right in the inside. It's like calcium for the bones, the stimulation of our library. So you don't give the brain stimulation, there's no growth. There's less growth, doesn't have full potential of growth. We need help to help our children's brain grow to the highest potential without putting more financial burden in our community. Haven't we had enough financial burden on our rents going up so much? I know we've been told that the library will be open and we will have a library in 5 years. That's not right. In those 5 years, a lot of children can get lost. Everyone knows that the building will be demolished, therefore it needs to relocate. The community is asking to be relocated in a place with sufficient space to have events for children, teens, and adults. The community also asks for the building to be in better conditions. The current one lacks basic accommodations such as air conditioning, heating, accessibility to disabled people, baby station, pest control, cleaning, maintenance, community outreach, because the majority of our people in the library system do not know about the library, and they need to know that this is their community library. It seems fair. It doesn't seem fair that the library of the same county is unequal, so unequal. Why one library has a 3D printer and the other one is like high technology, and Roseland struggles just for basic needs.
Ma'am?
We want to put the emphasis on space, because if we get a tiny space, because it's cheaper, we will not be able to have our events.
Okay, your 3 minutes is up. Thank you very much, and I hope your daughter feels better.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any public appearances not related to Roseland or other items on the agenda?
Hello. Because I'm from Roseland, I guess it is related to Roseland whenever I speak. My name is Dwayne DeWitt. I'm from Roseland. I wanted to thank you for the refurbishment of what you call the Northwest Regional Branch of the library. I think that's a nice thing that's been done there. I'd like to see it done in other parts of the city and the county. My concern tonight is there's no agendas up here. There's no way for the public who arrives to understand what's occurring if you don't have it up here, because they've blocked things off to go down there. It's really important that the public be given an opportunity to participate in a meaningful manner and understand how you operate. And without that up here, they wouldn't know. So I thank you that you're bringing some things up here to us now. I have concerns about how the library raises its money. You were able to get a bond passed, and I'm glad for that. But I see people come to the library and check out dozens upon dozens of movies, videos. And I think you should actually charge for that. I don't think that you should be in the business of entertainment. Libraries, as I understood it, were about utilizing books originally and works of art, things of that nature, maps, things where we could be educated. And we may be going through a period of economic downturn sooner than we think. It's happened before, it could happen again. I was hoping that you folks might say, okay, we'll let people rent out 5, 10 movies maybe. But when you start going into the 20s and 30s and 40s, collect a little cash on it. Use that money to help for the services we need in the library. One of the services I would like to see again in the downtown library is padded chairs. Somebody came up with this idea that we'd put in hard chairs. One of the workers told me it was for hygiene. Those are some of the hardest chairs I've ever sat on. And it's kind of difficult for older people. I've seen many of them have to get up and kind of walk around a bit before they go back and sit on those hard wooden chairs. I notice here for the meetings, all the chairs are padded. And you folks sit in padded chairs because you know after an hour or so, it's tough on a person's build to sit on a wooden chair. So I don't know if I can stay for the whole shebang tonight. I got to go back over to Roseland by bike, and that's kind of dangerous. So I'd just like you to also keep in mind, it's okay for people to ask for a Roseland library all the time, that it not ever be closed now that we've gotten it during this public time. So my last 15 seconds here tonight, I'd like to thank you for volunteering and being involved in this. And don't look at it like it always has to be right to the second and everything has to be right to the minute. Whoever came up with 3 minutes of time limit democracy is actually very uncreative. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other public comments not related to Roseland or any other item on the agenda? Okay. We will have a closed session. Hopefully, we will not be gone a long time. Half hour, 45 minutes, hour at the most, I anticipate. Can't guarantee. So we will adjourn to the closed session and return ASAP. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it would really do these people who came here a sign of respect by saying, we'll do that amount of public comments to deal with Roseland before you go off for 40 minutes without them knowing when you're going to be coming back.
I will try and get back. That's why I gave a timeline. Thank you. Can people hear? Yeah, now they can. Okay, I can hear myself. Okay, out of deference to the number of people that are here for Roseland and probably have families sitting at home waiting for them, and I see one family sitting in the chair there, we're going to go ahead and take 12.3 now so we can get going.
Excuse me, we need to have a report on the closed session.
Oh, yes, report on closed session. What do we do? Sorry, jumping ahead too fast. We were updated on the labor negotiations, so we have some idea what's happening there. And the second item that we talked about was the appointment of the permanent director and what the director search committee achieved today in the way of moving that whole process forward. So those were our two closed session items. So now we can move to 12.3 and the Roseland issue. So we'll start with public comment. 3 minutes. Each person has 3 minutes, and you'll hear the little belly thing go off. And if somebody has said something that you are going to say, see if you can at least rephrase it or say something different. Okay? And so line up and take your turns, and we'll start. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Pat Cuda, and I co-chair the Roseland Commission Library Coalition. We are made up of representatives from the Library Foundation, Santa Rosa Friends, the Roseland community members, past library commissioners, Los Cien, and just regular folk like me. Thanks for your ongoing support of the Roseland Community Library. As you know, the library has been successfully located in temporary facility for 4 years, shared with the Boys and Girls Club of Central Santa Rosa. You may not know that Roseland serves a fast-growing Western Santa Rosa city population of 55,000. The Roseland neighborhood itself is one of the densest habitation centers in the county, as well as having the poorest literacy and earning levels. It also has the youngest average age population. The Roseland population has immediately and constantly embraced use of the library, even in the minimal hours and days that it has been open. The Coalition to Secure a Permanent Library in Roseland was established after the successful launching of the branch, which was achieved with a remarkable community-wide outpouring of support. Over 250 individuals throughout the county of Sonoma made contributions to this effort. The Coalition received your support and the fiscal sponsorship of the Sonoma County Public Library Foundation to advocate and fundraise for a permanent location. Due to the slow progress in the building of the Roseland Village site by the county, it is taking much longer than expected to achieve this goal. But we are so grateful that Supervisor Linda Hopkins and the County Board of Supervisors for allocating funds for relocation to a second location for a 5-year period. We are also excited for the Roseland branch to have an upgraded facility with sole occupancy of the site. That is, we're not sharing it with the Boys and Girls Club. We sincerely hope that your commission will see a way to increase hours of operation at the new location. Roseland's hours are fewer than any other branch with the exception of Forestville and Occidental, yet serving a far greater population than most of the others. The truncated schedule was partially due to the need to accommodate the Boys and Girls Club's programming, but with a new location, you are free to ramp up hours, especially in after-school hours that our population desperately requires for true access. Despite this shortfall, library utilization has been high and the neighborhood support strong, as you see tonight. We look forward to collaborating with an action team of commissioners, the City of Santa Rosa, the Foundation, and friends to create a strategic plan and continue to pursue different avenues of funding to assure a permanent library for Roseland. Thank you.
Next.
Muchas gracias. Buenas noches. ¿Hablan español? No? Okay, I will do my best in English, and please give me extra minute because it's my second language, and I will try my best. When I came to the United States, I didn't know your language. I didn't have any books in my country because it was expensive to have it. When I came here and I went to the library, it was amazing for me. That transforms my life to learn. And I have the opportunity to participate in all the activities from the children since my son born. He is 14 years old, and when he was 3 years old, he already was speaking English, Spanish, reading, and writing. Where? In the library. Both of us, we were learning together every single day. And when my daughter born, it was more easy because I was really familiar with the library and I went participating in every single program. That was amazing. My girl is, oh my God, is very popular now in the library and everybody knows her. She feels that is a safe place to be. After the fire, our immigrant and undocumented community we're out of the system, and we don't feel safe, and we don't trust anybody. But we trust the library. The library and the church are the only place safe for us. And when I hear taking away our library without the community center, where the only opportunity the undocumented community has, the immigrant, it feels that you're taking so much. I don't know who decide, and I don't know what is going on because I really don't know. It's the first time I came here. But the only thing that I want to speak in from the bottom of my heart for all of you, thinking about them, thinking about our immigrant and undocumented community who live in Roseland, who really need your help, who really need your support, who really need to feel safe. I am a mother, immigrant, and undocumented of 2 citizen children, and I can tell you how we feel that we don't trust anybody, that we don't feel safe. Think about it and make the wonderful decision, thinking about our children, because I don't know what will happen to me, but I know for sure that they will be safe in those places. Don't take it away. If you are doing that, do it in the best positive way, helping our children because they will be the future and they will occupy your space. Do the best and they will be too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Francis, and I learned how to read and write in English and Spanish and from the books. And please don't take the library. Thank you.
Qué lindas tus palabras sobre la biblioteca. Muchas gracias por compartir. Good evening. My name is Serena Makovsky, and a little background about me. I grew up in Santa Rosa. I went to Rincon Valley Middle School and Santa Rosa High School. Then I lived abroad for a while and have returned here with my children to enroll them in Santa Rosa City Schools, and I'm happy to be back. I go to Roseland Public Library 5 days a week, and for several reasons. The first one being that I attend the morning exercise classes that are offered in partnership with St. Joseph Health. It's the best workout in Santa Rosa. I highly recommend it. The second reason I go to the library is because I'm a freelance editor for Netflix, and I love having it as that third location where I can get work done and meet my deadlines. It has a dependable wireless connection and various forms of tech support. A fantastic chance for me to be able to go on Google Hangouts and meet with my editorial departments right there from the library. A third reason is the bilingual staff and bilingual resources there. My children went to primary school abroad at international schools and dual immersion bilingual schools. Only at Roseland Library can they access the type of materials and resources that can refine their language skills and help them with their ongoing pursuit of school projects in Spanish and in English. And finally, the community knowledge offered by the staff at Roseland Public Library is just an absolute treasure. I have gone to them with questions about cultural events, the Oaxaca in the wine country events, when I'm having to do cultural writing. I have asked them questions for various educational needs my children had, trends in the community, and even when I was looking at real estate in the area, I was able to ask them questions about neighborhoods. So I really appreciate that. Then, of course, on a note that's just of observing just what that lovely little girl was talking about, I have seen the classes in there. And the idea of relocating Roseland Library to a place that couldn't contain more than 20 people means that an entire class would not fit in there for their programs, not to even mention the parents or the teachers. So I respectfully request of all of you that you prioritize this jewel of a community and library and give it the attention it deserves, the priority it deserves, and give the public the services they deserve. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Adriana. Thank you very much, first of all, for graciously moving your agenda item to now. So we really appreciate that. I'm the current Sonoma County Public Library Foundation president, a Los Cien Sonoma County Board of Director, and a former First 5 early childhood specialist. Today I'm going to speak as a foundation president, and I just want to let you know that the foundation board of directors continues to explore ways to reach the underserved areas of our county and support equity and access to library services in all parts of the county. We advocate for and support you, the commission, in finding a permanent home for the Roseland Library branch that has longer hours and access to all the services found in every other Sonoma County library. The foundation looks forward to working with you, the Library Commission, to make every library hub a place of learning and opportunity for all those members it serves. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ilona Reitzner. I'm a teacher down at the Wright School District. We are connected to Roseland District, also to Bellevue District. My daughter went to Elsie Allen High School and Cook Middle School, and we have a very, very large population in this area. And as a teacher, I'm very concerned that currently parents cannot take their children because the library closes at 2. School doesn't even get out till 2:30, so that does not give children any access right now. So if we find the temporary location, I would urge you to look at the opening hours for our families. I also want to point out that many of our families, because we're a lot of lower income area there, has no computers at home. They cannot do their schoolwork. They really rely on the public library to go and do their homework, their schoolwork, and they're really put at a disadvantage if that is not available to them. And I also want to urge you, in the name of the teachers and our families, to think about a permanent location back in Roseland, where we have it right now. And not just as a library, but also for community building. And we have adults who are not yet literate, and we have, like the former parent was saying, it's a trusted place for people to go, and it's really urgently needed, especially in our community in Roseland. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dwayne DeWitt. I'm from Roseland, and I'm very glad that there is now a Roseland branch of a library. But tonight, I'd like to ask you to continue this matter. And the reason why is I believe we're being presented with almost a fait accompli that didn't really allow the residents of Roseland to be a part of the process. I go to the library often. I didn't see much notice about this search, and I asked staff, as it stands now, you've given us two rather flimsy descriptions of what's occurring and don't show us any of the other sites that were visited or reviewed. You don't give the public any information on how best to serve the public where they are now. If you move it to the site that staff seems to prefer, it's about a mile away from where you are now, and the cost is close to $144,000 a year versus $48,000 a year for the other site. Over 5 years, that's a very significant difference in cost. I was at a meeting of the Sonoma County Community Development Commission on Wednesday 2 weeks ago, where Ben Wickham, the gentleman who is in charge of the department handling the Roseland Village site, said they would not even be clearing the environmental remediation documents until the middle of 2019. They can't even begin construction until 2020, in the middle of 2020, he said. This is important to keep in mind because we basically have an opportunity for you to be there right now at a lower cost and allowing you to look around and find something closer. Last but not least, this new site that you're moving to, perhaps, is a dangerous site. I'd like to actually bring to your attention that a young woman was killed on a bicycle just at an intersection right near there last Tuesday. And within the last 3 weeks, there's been 3 fatalities along the streets near there. It's basically an extremely busy traffic area and not a good spot for pedestrians or bicyclists. And that's what a library needs, is a spot where people can walk to and ride their bikes to comfortably. So this place where you're thinking of going is in a busy traffic area where it's a very difficult road to get to and do things, whereas West Avenue has been pretty welcoming and kind of a calm area, except for when they bring in the folks looking for housing. So I'll leave you with this. Please continue the item. I don't believe you need to rush. Check back with Ben Wickham at Community Development Commission, get the accurate situation, and let the public be involved in the search for the site. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment at this point in time? Okay, so let's open it up for the staff report on 12.3. It's an update report on Roseland relocation. Donna?
Sure. Thank you again for moving the item up to allow for public comment. I'm Lana Idlau, and I'm the Division Manager for Public Services for the Sonoma County Library, and I'm presenting this report with Dave, our Facilities Manager, as well. The Commission requested an update at our October 1st meeting, and we were following up on that request. What we're really looking for tonight is we're seeking general direction from the Commission on how to proceed with the 2 identified sites. On the first page, on page 227, in the agenda item, we've given you a map of the area that depicts Roseland Community Library now, and a proposed site number 1 and a proposed site number 2, as well as some of the prominent schools in the area in relation to those library sites. If we go to the next page in the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the Roseland site number 1. As you can see, the distance from the current library site is less than a mile. The square footage is about 5,000. The estimate occupancy is 100, with the monthly rent of 12,000. And I will say that in talking with staff and showing them the options between the two sites, they did prefer this site to site number 2. You will see below the map on this page the distance in miles from the school sites. You go to the next page, page 229. We've given you a potential layout for the Roseland site number 1. In this layout, you can see there's a defined children's area. There's room for technology for adults. There's a separate teen area. And then in the lower left-hand corner of this drawing, there's also a, could be a private community space. So there's an exterior door to that space that we could make available for public meetings after hours. There's room for staff in this building. That's especially important when considering expanding hours for the Roseland Library. There is space in this site to grow the collection. So there's space for our existing collection that's at the Roseland Library, but also space to grow. And let's move on to site number 2, next page. So site number 2, it's much closer to the current Roseland Library. The square footage is 1,400 with an estimated occupancy of 20, and the rent is much lower, about $3,900. And the breakdown in distance to schools is very similar to site number 1. In this layout, the collection space is very limited. We will be able to move our current collections into this space, but there's not much room for growth beyond what we have currently. If we were to offer a program in this space, all furniture in the middle of the space would have to be removed by staff or moved to the outer corners of the location. One of the public comments is limiting the number of program participants for this site. This is correct. With an occupancy of about 20, if we offered a story time, we could offer it to 10 children with their caregivers. So the space in this site is very limited. Let's go to the next page. We've also provided you with an outline of our search for these 2 finalized or proposed sites for now. I came on board with the library in August 2018, and we physically visited 6 sites but considered 10. We've also given you a breakdown of the challenges and benefits per site on this page of the agenda. And I also wanted to share some additional statistics for the commission. In fiscal year 17-18, we had over 26,000 visits to the Roseland Library with 301 programs and close to 4,000 attendees. The program statistics for this branch are more than what was recorded for our full-size branches of Guerneville and Cloverdale. In the previous fiscal year, we had 17,000 patron visits to the library with 159 programs and over 3,000 program attendees. So you can see that Roseland Library and the staff have been doing a terrific job of growing knowledge of the library and its services and what we can provide to community. Many of the public comment addressed the number of children in the area, the number of children registered for library cards at Roseland, and circulation of the Spanish language early childhood materials for this branch really demonstrated a need to have a growing children's collection and space for programs. And my final comment is that staff did have conversations with some of our key stakeholders before this update, so Roseland Coalition and the Community Development Commission, and they're both in favor of us looking for a site for at least 5 years while they continue to grow the projects for Roseland Village.
Did you have anything to add, David? Okay, commissioners. We'll start with Stephen.
Yes, thank you for all of your work. Who else, what other community stakeholders did you communicate with to narrow down your search down to the 10 besides the 2 that you just mentioned?
We did just speak to those 2 groups about the space. In terms of visiting the sites, we did look at things. It was staff that primarily defined those sites. We looked at transit options, again, distance to schools in the area, and that information. We gleaned from staff in terms of what was needed for the Roseland Library.
Okay, and as a follow-up question, if I can, which staff, because this is going to be my ongoing request of all reports, when you say staff were consulted, who are you referring to? We
had a staff meeting, and Kate Keaton was present, Dulce, Jackie Martinez, and Marlene.
Okay, and lastly, if I can, the environmental concern that was raised by the last speaker, what do you know about that?
Environmental concern for the proposed site number 1.
Well, I'm not sure which one he was referring to, but somehow he was commenting, making reference to possibly one of these 2 sites not being cleared until 2020.
I can answer that. In order to build in the current location, they have to do an environmental impact study. I believe that's what the gentleman was referring to, that causes further delay in the construction of the current area.
Right, but the staff seem to be recommending option 1. So who's reached out about the environmental concerns and the possibility of a prolonged delay for site number 1?
The Mid-10 development.
Could I clarify that as I understood the comment, the speaker was talking about the current site, because there are environmental concerns about where we are now, and that building is not necessarily going to be demolished as soon as we might have been planning or thinking, but I think it's our approach that the current facility is really not an optimal facility. And knowing that we're going to have a relocation, if we want to continue services, we want to try to find the most effective facility and move to that facility as soon as possible.
Okay, so the speaker was commenting about the current site, not these 2 proposed by staff.
That's what I understood.
Is that your understanding? So as you're presenting both of these options for our consideration, you're not aware of any environmental causes that could cause a delay to 2019, 2020, et cetera?
Correct.
Not at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Jason?
What's the current occupancy potential, or what is the occupancy at our current site?
I would say it's at least 200.
It's at least 200? Mm-hmm. And is it maxed out?
Not during the hours that we're open. I believe the Boys and Girls Club, and when they have community events there, they max it out. But as far as I know, CDC has ceased all community activities there.
Does anybody else have any comments? Is this discussion? Okay, yeah, we're in discussion. Okay. Tom?
I'm concerned because...
Please use your microphone.
I was told to turn it off. I'm concerned because we're starting with the premise that Sonoma County Library has to provide a facility in Roseland. And that's not the way the Joint Powers Agreement has set up the Sonoma County Library to operate. The cities or the county are supposed to provide the facilities. We will fix them up, we'll manage them, we'll run them, we'll move books from one to the other and things like that. But that we're starting from the premise that this is going to come out of our budget, renting for this potentially very expensive thing that's going to affect us over a long period of time. I think we're backwards. We need to be talking to the city of Santa Rosa and the county of Sonoma and get some commitments from them as to what kind of money is going to be available to cover this rent. Then we can use the money we've set aside to decorate or move into it and so forth and so on like that. part of what we need to do, I think, is table this thing for right now and say we need to look at different facilities, because $720,000 at $12,000 a month is a lot of money out of our budget, money that we really shouldn't be spending. And I think we need to look at I mean, these are long-term issues that have to be dealt with. It's a political issue with the county and the city of Santa Rosa. It's also an issue of how we're funded. Right now, we're operating on 8 more years on a property tax or sales tax gift that we're going to have. And if that is not renewed in 8 years, we won't be able to afford our headquarters building where we're paying $20,000 a month rent. So I think we need to really, really be careful how we're going to spend this money, because we do not have a stable funding source. We have limited property tax that we get in, and it's just a concern. I want to go back to the Joint Powers Agreement and the whole concept, because we've had at least one city who's been here pleading poverty when they were faced with $1 million bill to repair the HVA system in their library. And the leases we have with Roanoke Park, that city, and generally the leases we have with the other cities are that the city's supposed to maintain the internal structures, not the internal fixtures and things like that, but the functional systems, the electrical system, the HVAC system, et cetera. And they provide the building, and then we maintain it except for major repairs like that. And we can't make an exception for Santa Rosa or Roseland. However much I agree, they need a better library. They need more hours after school. They need to have something there. But we have to work within the parameters that the contract that created the Sonoma County Library System under the Joint Powers Agreement is supposed to operate. I just feel really strongly about this, and we need to start with political contact from our commission, especially our chair, to the supervisors and the mayor of Santa Rosa and the city council members, and say, look, we need to sit down and talk about this, not just some other staff or something else. This is a larger thing that we really need to discuss and see what's going to happen. And we do have time to do this. I don't like the system that's there. I drove through Roseland on the way up to Healdsburg just before this evening. And yeah, it's a really busy place. They have a lot of people there. They need to have a library. But the way the system we're in works is the city and the county, because the county was agreed that they'd help out, are the people that should be responsible for getting the building. Now, having said that, I think Ms. Kuda is right that we're going to have to raise money. She's said she's going to try and do this and help out. We've had the fire, and that's been a problem. But I think we need to get our foundation out there and understand that they need to start raising millions of dollars for these kinds of things and help the Roseland Coalition. So when we actually find a permanent site, that there is going to be money available to build something, because Santa Rosa is going to cry poverty into the future. So I think I've said enough for now.
Jason, what's next?
Chairman or Commissioner Hauser, thank you for your input, but I disagree 100%. I think we're operating under 2 mandates, one the JPA and now the Measure Y. And a directive of Measure Y is to expand library services for the people of Sonoma County, access and hours. And part of that mandate would then be to provide services to the Roseland District. And I think, unfortunately, in the interim between a permanent site and that site, it's incumbent on us to provide a temporary facility to provide access to a community that's in need of access. So I would encourage the board to move forward with a decision on a site and vote on this agenda item.
Barbara?
Yes, thank you. We are representatives of a joint powers agreement. That's why we're here. The joint powers agreement is the governing document for what we're doing. Commissioner Hauser said a lot of the things that I agree with. First of all, I forgot to say that I really appreciate when people come and spend their time away from home and come down and testify in front of a public agency like ours. I have done it many times myself. I've been in front of city councils and planning commissions and stuff, and I know it takes effort and thought to come down, and I really appreciate what you're saying. I don't know anybody who doesn't want Roseland to have a library, and a really good library, and an equal library, and equal facilities. I've been over there. I've seen them, what the problems are. It started off, like about 3 or 4 years ago, it was going to be like a trailer shared with the Boys and Girls Club. That's when I first joined the commission. It was like the library system had no money. We were on a total shoestring budget. We were closed on Mondays. It was a really, really bad situation, and yet the library stepped up with some limited amounts of ability to do something and working with community groups and through the foundation. It was kind of the shared thing. Well, this is the best we can do. It's not nearly enough. It's not what we want, but this is the best we can do. And from that, of course, it became popular and expectations grow. And so now, of course, everybody wants to have a really good facility, open all the same hours everybody else is, and all the same access to. Of course, we all feel that way. I can't, though, put aside the responsibility that we have as representatives of the Joint Powers Agreement. The situation is that the jurisdictions are to put up the buildings. In the past, it was easier to do that. There were funding possibilities that aren't available anymore. I believe Rohnert Parks is probably the last facility that was built, and that was built with redevelopment funds. Jerry Brown and the state took away redevelopment funds. They don't exist anymore. So how do you come up with a big pot of money to build a building? It's millions and millions of dollars, and it's extremely difficult. In the past, there were other bond measures and so forth. I think in Windsor, the city turned over its old city council building and said, we'll use this as a library. So it's an extraordinarily difficult problem to come up with the amount of money that's needed for a building. I would say, well, first of all, I agree that it is not the library's place to enter into leases for facilities. It's the jurisdiction's responsibility. If they can't provide a building, it's a jurisdiction's responsibility to enter into the lease. I appreciate the staff work that went into trying to find these two spaces. There's kind of like a really good one except for the problems that were mentioned, and then there's kind of like an insufficient one. I don't think anyone is talking about closing a library and not having anything there. I heard a lot of fear in people's voices that we're going to close it down altogether, and I don't think that's even being mentioned. But I would say at bare minimum, we need to have this conversation with this jurisdiction, with the city of Santa Rosa. They need to enter into the lease. They need to help with the finances of this. We're talking about $720,000 for 5 years for that larger space. And the library would be on the hook for the whole thing. And it isn't an equitable situation because the library doesn't pay for the facility in any other jurisdiction. So I understand that this county did put aside some money. We need a firm commitment on how much of that money we could have, and a firm commitment from Santa Rosa about signing the lease and what they're willing to put forward also. I don't think any of those conversations have happened. They haven't happened in a serious kind of methodical way, at least that I've heard about. So if in terms of direction from staff, I would suggest that we go back to Santa Rosa, have a serious conversation, get serious commitment from the county, from the CDC, how much we can have. And also, I believe that the staff did a good job looking around, but I kind of wish there was something in between here that wasn't $720,000 or $234,000. And something that can, I'm willing to kind of negotiate and, work through this kind of stuff and not have it black and white. But We are also working on through the bylaws committee trying to create some lease standards. Right now, we have jurisdictions that don't even have leases with the library, and we've got to correct that, because if they don't have a lease with the library is responsible for paying for major maintenance, and we're in a situation where that's not really fair. So we're working on the bylaws. We're trying to create some lease standards. If we do this, we'll be going exactly the opposite direction, away from equity between the jurisdictions. So I agree with what Commissioner Jason, what's your last name? Commissioner Merrick said, which is we do have a mandate under Measure Y. Measure Y committed to keeping Roseland open. That was, I believe, the stated thing in the expenditure plan. But that being true, and again, no one wants to close the library in Roseland. That being true, we still have to operate under the Joint Powers Agreement, because that's who we are. We're the representatives of the Joint Powers. Thank you.
Jason?
Yes, I may be mistaken, but who owns the Occidental Extension Library building? I don't believe it's us, and I don't believe it's this town of Occidental. And from what I'm reading, we leased part of the store of the Occidental Library. So in essence, precedent's already been set to lease space for a library. That's not part of the JPA.
Are there any other comments? Okay, Andy, let's start with you.
I'd actually like to let Tom respond specifically to that, if I could, please.
I know it's not a popular position, but I think what we need to do is draw the line and say, we need to negotiate with Santa Rosa. We need to negotiate with the County of Sonoma for the 2 little branch libraries that we pay minimal rent for, because they should be paying for that. And that's why the JPA Bylaws Committee is working on the lease standards, so that we have them, so that we can then approach all the entities and say, this is what we need to be doing. So again, breaking the rule is not my idea of the way to go. It's going backwards. Thank you.
But please address the question of...
Wait a minute. Andy comes next. Jason.
Thank you. I'm a new commissioner, so I'm only recently entering this space in terms of the situation at Roseland. But right from the start, I've been hearing a great deal from concerned members of our community, like those we heard tonight, who are speaking very eloquently and passionately about the need to provide adequate library services to this currently underserved community. And I think I can speak for other commissioners in saying that as a group, we recognize and support this. We want to do what we can. At the same time, I want to thank Lana and the library staff who've gone out and have done the work to present us with these options in what seems like a difficult market. And not meaning to oversimplify, but it looks like we have 2 options that are not that great. One has, I think, adequate space, but is located a mile away from where we are now. And we heard from some folks who said that's a difficult mile for people who, it would be easy for those of us who have cars, but if you're reliant on public transportation or bicycle, that distance can make a big difference. The other space, which is convenient, seems wholly inadequate from a size perspective. So it's against this background that I'm listening to Commissioner Hauser, and I think he raised some really valid points. I'm just learning about the Joint Powers Agreement, but it seems to me that we need to work very hard to bring some reluctant communities into compliance with the basic tenets of the agreement. I know it's terrible from a negotiating perspective to reveal at the beginning what you'd be willing to do, but that said, I would feel much more comfortable about allocating rent for a period of years for a temporary situation if we knew at the outset that that was only to fill a gap while the permanent solution that had already been agreed to was being constructed. But for us to enter a 5-year lease with no permanent agreement established, and neither of the locations being ideal, seems to me to be a serious violation of our fiduciary responsibility. So I want the committee to know that we're not going to walk away from this. We're going to continue to work hard, and we're probably going to end up reaching out for additional help to the community. But I think we have to bring the city of Santa Rosa and the county to the table if we're going to hope to find a permanent solution to this challenging and important issue. Thank you.
Okay, Jason?
Yeah, Santa Rosa has 4 libraries. They have fulfilled the fiduciary duty. It's an evolving neighborhood. Before, the city of Santa Rosa didn't own this property. It was in the county of Sonoma. So before the city of Santa Rosa, and then it was just recently annexed into the city of Santa Rosa. So to say Santa Rosa needs to jump on board and it hasn't jumped on board, I wouldn't say is accurate. Our library system has already entered into leases on behalf of an extension library. I could read you verbatim. County Library was able to lease the adjacent storefront, effectively doubling the size of the library. The larger space will allow us to meet several of the needs we have heard our patrons over the years, said Guerneville Library Branch Manager Nancy Simpson. We're adding Wi-Fi, So it's not unprecedented that we have entered into a lease in a building that owned by a county or city's jurisdiction. So precedent has already been set in this case. And I think we need to move forward. Staff is letting us know they have looked in this jurisdiction, and these are the 2 available sites with the potential demolition in spring of 2019 to continue the library. I'm following staff's direction and recommendation and showing faith in their ability to look at the facilities available and make a decision at this point.
Deborah?
Great discussion thus far. We certainly are bound by the JPA, but, and this is not something that the commission doesn't know, but I really think that our ability to provide services is that paramount thing. And of course we want to do it within our budget, and of course we don't want to be spending money that we're not going to have in 10 years. But honestly, I think that that Roseland could be, and the notion of negotiation is also a good one, but I think that I would prefer us to think about it as partnership. Negotiation is a very tough word sometimes, especially when someone doesn't have as much power as the other side does. And so partnership is a much more, I think, friendly word. So I think I'd rather partner with those jurisdictions. And this could be an amazing story. So Roseland, we spend a little money now knowing that we're going to be there probably for 5 years. Probably that's not going to be the best place for the library in the long run. But right about that time, right about as the library is really successful, that is about the time that we should be starting the next tax measure negotiation with the campaign with the city and with the civilians who are out there. And also I think that this is a perfect time to get people who are here in this room to talk to the people in Santa Rosa, the officials in Santa Rosa. And, we love that you tell us this story. We want you to tell them that story too. And you should be part of the negotiations, part of the partnership, part of the communication. Because what Santa Rosa wants to do, what we want to do at this table, and what you want to do out there is to make sure that we provide the most services we can. And let's do it efficiently. No one is trying to, as some of the commissioners said, no one is trying to take things away. We're just trying to think in the long term. How do we do that? How do we make sure that it's not just 5 years, that we're thinking strategically about how this can be the strongest library we can make it? Thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Stephen?
Very quickly, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
My concern is not that Santa Rosa hasn't jumped on board, but they haven't been contacted to be brought into a discussion. I think we have to have a discussion, and the minute we say we're going to go ahead and do this, we'll never, ever get a discussion going. Thank you.
Okay. One clarification, I think, before we go forward, and I need to make sure I understand what you're asking for. You're asking for direction to move forward and continue the search, negotiation, whatever needs to be done to make one or the other of these possible. You're not asking for a defined answer tonight as to which one. You're not asking an okay and this is what we're going to do tonight. You're asking for direction to move forward and keep kind of going down the line and doing what Tom says and talking to Santa Rosa. Can you put some money into this? Finding out how much, if whatever, we can get of the $500,000 that the county set aside. Now, am I correct in what I'm understanding, or am I incorrect?
Thank you, Commissioner Foxen.
Could I respond to that? Sure. Thank you, Lana. We specifically didn't agendize this as an item for action. We are hoping for you, and we appreciate the committed discussion that you've had here, where we have made a recommendation to pursue Site 1. So what we were really looking for was your assessment as to whether we can continue to pursue that in terms of negotiations with a landlord, a potential landlord, because there are other entities that are interested in that site. And it's a very prime site, and we don't want to necessarily lose that site. And it could happen depending on how the negotiations go. We're certainly willing to approach and talk with the city of Santa Rosa. We've talked with the CDC. We've talked with Mr. Wickham. He's recommending that we come to them with a firm site and negotiate as much as we can of the $500,000 that the county set aside for Roseland. We think that we could get at least $250,000, but I think we have to have a firm plan and a location that we've identified and pursued in order to go to the CDC. So we're certainly willing, along with commissioners who are interested, to engage Santa Rosa officials in more discussions about the lease, but we're looking really for support or acknowledgement that we should continue to move forward on this.
Okay. Stephen.
Thank you for that elaboration. And yes, I think Commissioner Merrick was actually putting forth a motion to adopt the staff's recommendation pursuing Site 1. And if that has been put forth as a motion, then I'm seconding that motion.
Okay, we can't put motions on discussion items. What we can do is give a thumbs up for them to move forward or not. Am I correct? Okay. Yeah, it's a discussion item, so there's no motion involved. It's just thumbs up. Do you want them to move forward or not?
On lease negotiations.
On whatever it takes to put one or the other of these in place. We're not even telling them which one to go with, I don't believe. Okay, then we have to have a preferred site. Okay, I'm going to put, go ahead.
I thought our director was saying that the staff is asking for a thumbs up on the more expensive site, the Site 1, I think.
Okay, okay.
And,
yeah. Okay. So, okay, does anybody else have any other comments? Because I want to make one before we finish.
I'm not clear what we're doing. If we're giving the staff a thumbs up to pursue this site, and we think we're going to be talking to Santa Rosa, and we think we're going to be talking to the CDC, that's not enough for me.
Well, I think they're going to
if that's
have to.
What we're going to do.
Okay, okay. Okay, I'll give my 2 cents. We do have Measure Y money, and it is permissible to spend it on something of this nature. I was appalled to find out that the library in Roseland had to shut down certain hours that were ideal for students to go study. And because that's when the Boys and Girls Club was up and functioning. I mean, I was blown away by that little piece of information. I think we need to look at, and somebody alluded to it, I can't remember who, but Deborah. It's public relations. It's our being willing to give in order to get people on board to support us. If we give and somebody isn't supporting something like Roseland, then how are we going to look, or how are they going to look? And what is going to come out of that? In the long run, that's a benefit for us. Yes, we might have to put out some money, but that's a benefit for us if we're doing something like that. Now, my argument for the larger site is you're spending 39 cents more per square foot on the smaller site. You're getting something that is really, truly not functional. If you can only get 20 people in it, heck, Cloverdale, that has about, 1/5 of the population of Roseland, that library is always full and almost always has more than 20 people in it. And we're just 8,000 people compared to 55,000. So, 20 people in a room is just not enough. So the larger site would be much more practical. And throwing away 39 cents a square foot is like adding another $32,000 to the overall 5-year plan that's just wasted. So you can technically subtract that from your 720. I mean, I have fun with, yes, that's what it is. Anyway, so I am very much in favor of it. I think long-range thinking, it's the wisest move. I want to see that community grow. I want to see them have access to what our little town of Cloverdale has access to. And this is just one step in that whole process, one small step. In 5 years, heck, I've been on this board for 5 years, on this commission for 5 years, and it seems like nothing. So that's my thought. Okay, so. Okay, Paul.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification. Commissioner Hauser, I agree with what he says, that we shouldn't be solely responsible for a lease at all, but since we're in this position right here, I understand that for 5 years, we may have to put some money into it. And Susan, you said, can I have a point of clarification? You said that CDC would, maybe we get $250,000 for part of this lease. Is that?
County, we heard Supervisor Hopkins mentioned set aside $500,000 for the relocation of the Boys and Girls Club and the Roseland Library. It's not specified at all. It's the money is in control of the CDC, and in order to determine how much we might be able to obtain of that allocated to us, we need to present a proposal to the CDC, which would ultimately probably have to go to the Board of Supervisors. We don't think it could get there before January. Frankly, we're concerned about losing this space. We'd like to try to negotiate terms of a lease, and of course it wouldn't be done unless the commission approved it, but if we had the lease negotiated, and I don't know if the county might require commission approval. So we were anticipating coming back to you hopefully in December with a firmer package focused on the larger facility, and we have had ongoing discussions with Mr. Wickham, and will continue to do that to see what we think we can achieve. I think if we come in with a solid package, we'd get at least $250,000, but we don't know that for sure. So it's a rather complicated process, and I think you all have pointed out that the city of Santa Rosa really needs to be consulted about this. And I'm not saying that they're necessarily, I don't know what their position is going to be, but we certainly need to have a conversation with them so that they understand how serious this matter is to the JPA Commission, and we will certainly do that. on your behalf, and if commissioners want to be involved, that can happen too. But to really move this forward, to understand how much we might get out of that $500,000, we've got to get a proposal that we are sharing with the CDC.
So thank you. So with that potential $250,000, that's over the 5-year period?
Yes.
Okay. And then
we think we might be able to get it all. We'd like to get it all in this fiscal year if we could get it. So
it could be possibly 500 for the 5-year period. And then Santa Rosa, we would hope, would kick in some. And then possibly possibly the foundation would kick in some. So we may have a portion of that for the 5 years, but I now clearly understand that we have to move forward on the lease, or we're going to lose this, at least to negotiate. We're going to lose this space, and we can't really talk to the CDC or Santa Rosa or the foundation unless we have a proposal. So I understand that. So my support would go to move ahead with the staff's recommendation with this site and see what happens in the future. But I think we really have the community support for this, and I think it's for all the other commissioners' eloquence in promoting this. I think it seems to be the right move right now. So I would support it.
Okay, any more comments? Okay, so all those in favor?
I don't think we have a motion.
No.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
We have to give
it's
some
just
type
a
of
thumbs up.
We have to get a.
Okay, I'm just asking for everybody to thumbs up.
Okay,
it's not a
good.
motion,
Thumbs
anything.
Up. Okay, sounds good.
I haven't even said anything.
No, I just want to, I know we didn't have a motion on the floor, so I want to make sure.
No.
Everything's on the up and up.
Yeah. Okay, so all of those who support the staff moving forward in exploring the larger, I'll say the larger option because that's their recommendation, for a Roseland relocation branch, thumbs up. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, all those against? 2. Okay, so it's 7-2. With McKinsey and Hauser being the...
I don't think we should be taking...
Oh, okay. No names? Okay.
No names.
Sorry. Thought that was supposed to... one of these days I'll get all these rules down. Okay, so that is finished, and we are going to move forward on exploring the relocation project possibility.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lana and Dave. Okay, we've gotten out of order for one thing. So in view of the fact that we've got some people here for the Measure Y, is everybody agreeable to moving Y forward as well? And that is 10.1, and this is an action item by motion, and it will be to accept the annual report of the Measure Y Oversight Committee. So if Mike Neely, is that you? Okay.
So right there, okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mike Neely. I'm the chairman of the Measure Y Oversight Committee.
Please speak to your microphone.
Okay. A little closer, okay.
Close.
Okay, I'm here to present our report for the year 2017-18. Talk about tonight the Measure Y goals that came out of the document itself, what the library accomplished during the year, the financial summary, and our conclusions as to whether the requirements were met, and then any questions that you might have. Measure Y specifically had 3 major bullet points: to support the library collection and programs, improve access to local libraries, and maintain the aging library facilities. In more detail for those, for the supporting the collection, the idea was to maintain the book clubs and the materials collection, the reading clubs for children, teens, maintain children's classes and services, education programs, homework help, computer labs, maintain children's story time, and provide computer labs and classes in all the libraries, and support story time, which is very favorable. For improving access, wanted to restore and enhance the library hours. It was one of the hottest buttons, of course. Keeping qualified librarians, expand senior and disabled services, maintain book, material, and digital collections, and keep the Roseland Library from being closed. For maintaining facilities, there was a need to renew the aging facilities. Many of our libraries are getting a little long in the tooth. Provide a safe place for children after school, to keep the library safe and clean. Provide computer labs and updated technology and Wi-Fi at all the libraries. Moving on from that, what was accomplished during the year, they did increase the materials budget by 67%, which resulted in a 33% increase in the number of new items and a shorter waiting time for the most popular books, increased online services, increase in the number of programs, expanded licenses for films, increased cultural programs in the Student Success Initiative, and provided renewed material for story time and the Head Start. They partnered with the Sonoma County Regional Parks to produce a Discovery Backpack, had health, education, technology programs, both in English and Spanish, provided SAT and ACT preparation classes, skills and assistance and technical classes, computer classes in English and Spanish, adult literacy programs, summer reading programs, and the Lawyers in the Library program. To improve access to the libraries, they reopened on Mondays a little bit before the Measure Y clicked into effect, but is in anticipation of Measure Y funding. Increased the hours on other days, Wednesdays and Saturdays, and it did support the temporary Roseland facility in Santa Rosa. Expanded staffing because of the extra hours, and purchased hublets for the tablet access within the libraries. For the facilities, there was a refresh of the Northwest branch was completed, added self-check stations, upgraded computer equipment and internet access for the public, and refreshed staff computer equipment, and began replacement of the telephone system, provided a laptop training cart for computer classes, and moved services and headquarters to Rohnert Park in order to free up some space in Central and to provide infrastructure for future growth. And also got a delivery truck to provide better delivery service of materials throughout the library. Financial summary, the total spending, Measure Y and property taxes increased by over $5 million during the year. Measure Y funding specifically, the revenue came in a little bit over budget, but the spending was way under budget. That brought up, of course, a lot of discussion, a $4 million surplus, but we felt like it was difficult getting a program of this nature started any time, and to start it when you have a major fire like last year was really quite a challenge. So we think that last year was an exception and probably will not be the case for the future. So in conclusion, we said that the funds for Measure Y were spent according to the document, according to the way the Measure Y measure was passed. There was a large surplus due to, we feel like, special circumstances, the fire and the startup. And much was accomplished during the year, but work remains, and there's both still demand for additional access to the libraries and resources to the library. And finally, I would like to express our appreciation and thanks to the help that we've gotten from the staff, from Jane Klickman, Ken Neiman, graphics department, and all the other people throughout the library staff who provide us with pictures. Are there any questions?
I just want to make a comment. This is a wonderful report, and thank you very much, Mike. I was the liaison to the Measure Y committee this past year, and I saw the good work that was done by the whole committee, the good ideas, and I thought it was, we kind of talked about this. The importance of this report is to show the public that their tax dollars are being spent according to what they voted for and spent well. And this is a critical document for maintaining the trust in the community. And so I really appreciate the time that everybody, all the volunteers put in to come to meetings and then to write the report. And I think you did a great job. It looks great. And looking forward to circulating this to everybody and increasing the transparency really about the tax measure and all that's been accomplished with it. So thank you all very much. Mike and Tom, I see you here, and all the other members of the committee.
Jason?
Yeah, I wanted to echo what Commissioner McKenzie was saying. Thank you for the report. I think it clarifies what Measure Y has been spent for and what we need to achieve, and I think it does a good alliteration of that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your support.
Anybody else? Okay, so we have a motion. We need to have a motion for the acceptance of this report.
I'd like to move
acceptance of the report.
A second.
Okay, Tom moved and
Andy
who seconded? Andy? All righty, okay. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion, please.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All those against? Okay, unanimous passing. And thank you very much, Mike, for the report. And be sure to thank all the representatives on the committee for us for doing all that work. Thank you. Okay, so we will go back to where we were on our thing, 6. And I don't believe there are any lab appointments.
Is the proper one count as a lab? Probably not.
Yeah, the Y people are down further. Okay. Nobody, is there a report by the foundation or the library boards or friends? Anybody?
No.
Okay. So, okay, commissioner reports. I'm going to give a request of commissioners to at least briefly give a report, a written report each month, so that it can be seen by people. It doesn't have to be extensive or lengthy or anything like that. I know mine's way over than what I usually do. So, but I'd just like to ask people if they at all can possibly do that. It will make it a lot easier. So then let's go through and briefly elucidate on what you wrote if you didn't write, and briefly elucidate on what you did if you did do something. Okay, Stephen.
Yes, thank you. I did provide a report, but I was very much remiss. The staff at the Sebastopol Library accommodated the Human Rights Commission. They actually are doing a great thing in bringing out their meetings out into the various parts of the county and use our library to have their commission hearing. And it was very moving in the fact that we had the young commissioners. There's a youth commission, part of the Human Rights Commission of Sonoma County. It was very moving to hear these young future leaders, well, current leaders, speak about the different issues affecting them personally. And there was a long discussion about the immigrant community. So I was very honored to introduce and be a part of that event. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Andy.
I apologize for not submitting a written report. I was gone for the first 2 weeks of October, but had a chance to participate in some activities since then. On the 15th, I attended the Finance Committee meeting in Rohnert Park. On October 30th, I attended the story time at the Healdsburg Public Library. This was for children 3 to 5, and it was the day before Halloween, so they all came in costume. And the children's librarian, Charity Anderson, was just fabulous. If you ever have a chance to go to a children's story time, it's such a thrill. And she told stories, the kids sang songs, they had a variety of activities. It was extremely well attended. There were lots of kids and young parents from all across the community, so it was a wonderful event. Later that afternoon, I attended the Friends of the Healdsburg Library meeting and the Friends of the Sonoma County Wine Library meetings. Last Friday, I went to the what's called We Read Bilingue, I guess, story time in English and Spanish for babies and toddlers. That was for younger kids, and also just a delight. And it was so great to see the enthusiasm of these young kids to be in the library. On the way to the meeting tonight, I stopped off for the 30th anniversary celebration, which I was sorry to have to leave early, but obviously responsibilities here call. But that was really well attended, and met some lovely people who just raved about the library and the great staff. And we have our November book sale sponsored by the Friends for the rest of this week. So if you're looking for any gifts for the holidays, please stop by the Healdsburg branch. And I'd like to thank Tom for taking time to come to the celebration this afternoon. It was great to see you there.
Okay, Tom?
I have no report.
Paul?
Well, the Petaluma Library Lab met last Wednesday, thus I didn't have time to get a report in, but next time. We discussed, of course, the refresh that's coming up, which is pretty exciting. And we also talked about some of the things we can do to help with that. And there is a couple of reserve foundation amounts of money that are particularly for the Petaluma Library. So we discussed how we could access those funds. And we did get a report on some of the architectural plans that were starting to bubble forth, and that was pretty exciting. So we like that. Also, there is Lumicon coming up, which I just wanted to put into the record, which if you haven't gotten to Lumicon, it's a lot of fun. It's a comic convention. And it'll be January 26th on Saturday. And it'll be at the Petaluma Community Center. And it's gotten better and better every year, so I encourage everybody to go. Also, the book sale is coming up for the fall, and that's usually a big deal at the Petaluma Library. There's a lot of books there, and that'll be the children's sale days are November 9th and 10th, and the general sales are November 14th, 15th, and 16th. So that's coming up. I buy too many books at these things. I really shouldn't. I should take out books for free from the library instead of buying books, but anyway. So the other thing I wanted to mention I attended was the Petaluma Historical Library and Museum, A Story of Civic Progress and Pride. It was about the Carnegie Library and how it came about, and it's a great exhibit. I encourage everybody to go and look at that. It's not just about the Petaluma Carnegie Library, but it's about the Carnegie libraries in California, and the ones that are still existing, the ones that were destroyed. And it's really great to see. I saw a few commissioners there, and And that'll be running through December 23rd at the Petaluma Stark Library. And a little known fact I just want to throw out, you think, well, that was the first public library in Petaluma. No, it's the second one. So the first one was on the 3rd floor of City Hall, but anyway, so a little known fact, but anyway, thank you.
Welcome. Okay, Deborah?
I attended the Guerneville Library Advisory Board meeting, although I think it may have been a little longer ago than our last meeting, but it seemed very, I think. And then I was also invited to attend the Windsor Library Advisory Board meeting, and that was very interesting. And I went to the party just before we met here as well, and there was all kinds of music and all kinds of great food. But I was delighted to come down and be here. That's it.
Thank you. Jason?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Randall?
Nothing to add to my written report.
Barbara? I thought you were going to start. Sorry.
Well, I thought I would wait to be called upon. My report is on page 4. I spent a lot of time on library stuff. I have to say, once I go through my calendar and I see there's so much going on, there are meetings and there are events and there are all kinds of things. I was gone 3 weeks out of this chunk of time, and yet I don't know, whatever. But I wanted to just point out a couple of highlights. On September the 12th, the Sonoma County Poet Laureate did a presentation in the Rohnert Park branch, and it was all about renewal after the fires. And that's a really prestigious position that we have. The woman who got that position, I didn't, of course, write her name down. It's Maya, and I can't remember her last name. But anyway, it was really wonderful. I attended, and this is Commissioner Hauser's bailiwick, but I attended the dedication of the Sarah Kunde Reading Room at Sonoma Valley Regional Library, and I would like to give him kudos for doing such a good job as a master of ceremonies. It was a lovely event, catered, and great turnout, and really an honor to the Kunde family and all that they've done to support that Sonoma branch. I went over to we had a little ribbon cutting in our neighborhood park. And I used the opportunity to take some books and some of the bling over there, and just had a huge crowd and lots of good works for the library. Everybody loves a free book, so that was fun. I went to All Staff Day. I saw a lot of other commissioners here then. Had the honor of going to the Mayors and Council Members Association dinner, and we asked our interim director, Susan Hildreth, to come along with us. Commissioner Neff and our chair were there. And it's just a way we're trying to really expand the outreach and the connection to, to the community and to, people who need to know about us. I also went to the 50th anniversary celebration in Northwest Regional Library, and that was a great party and really, really fun. And I commend everyone involved in that. And lastly, something unique that we're doing in Rohnert Park is the Oral History Project, and we did get 2 of our friends, Olwen Peterson, who's 99 and a half years old and is still the volunteer coordinator, and Joanne Schmutz, who started the bookstore and has been with us for like over 40 years. We have them on tape now. We haven't figured out where to go with this yet, but we have them on tape, so I'm really thrilled to have that project under our belts, and that is funded by the Friends of the Library. And it may be something we could spread around throughout our system, which I'd love to see. And I really hope that everybody will turn the page and look on page 6 at all the pictures, because I worked really hard to get these on here, and Jane helped me too. And it just shows just kind of the variety of events that, they're constantly going on in our library system, and a really cute picture of Tom Hauser at the top. Thank you.
Okay, and mine. You have a rather lengthy one here for me, but there are a couple of issues that have come up in relation to some of these. I went to the Sonoma Valley Lab Advisory Board meeting. They had written a letter, a copy of which is in the packet, regarding their concerns over the issues of how we were spending Measure Y money, saying, we only opened at 35% hours more, and we should be doing more hours, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so I wrote a response, as is the charge for my position as chair. As far as speaking for the commission, I do not necessarily speak for the commission. What I did was I explained the facts, gave information, clarified the issues, clarified what our responses to the different things were, such as the move to the headquarters and the hours, why we limited the hours to 35%. If we don't have the infrastructure to support those hours, then they're not going to do anybody any good. It's all going to fall apart and become a lot of work for the people in the library. Moving to the headquarters, I think I've told this before, but the time I had to climb over boxes to get into the back of the basement to see Jamie over something, I knew that at that point in time, that was the end of it. It really something needed to happen. And we found the space that was the most cost-effective for what we needed. It also provided us a place to grow. So these are the kinds of things that I went and talked to the lab about. Tom Hauser, the Sonoma Valley Commissioner, was there. Sarah Van Treese was there also. And at the end of the conversation, which all of us joined in, the lab members that were there, as well as the three of us, at the end of the conversation, they thanked us for coming and communicating what our stance was, why we did it, and they said it was one of the best examples of communications that they had experienced. And they would like me to send out the letters to the other labs as an example of what can be done, bringing up your concerns, addressing the lab. I did not do anything more than deliver information and clarify. If it was about a policy, I would deliver information and clarify. That is the chair's job or part of its job. And at the same time, if it was a change to policy or they were concerned about something like that, I would come back to the commission to have the commission address that. That is the position of the chair. When complaints come in, the chair deals with it. If it's a complaint that really affects some major part of the library, then we go to the commission and say, hey, we need to address this. Do we need to change it? How do we need to change it, et cetera? So again, that's part of the chair, and it's part of being timely in your responses, and that's an important part of communication, is being timely and responding. So that's one of the issues that came up with this, and I hope that people understand it's not speaking for the commission per se, it's giving out the information that needs to be done. And that's mainly one of the major jobs of the chair. Okay, so the other issue that came up is Barbara and I made a decision in the JPA, or not the JPA, in the bylaws. It says the chair appoints committees as needed. We were hoping that Santa Rosa will have resolved its issues by this time, and we would have a full board to work with, and so we were going to appoint the committees then. But that's not happening. It's going to be another, I don't know how long, before they finally figure it all out. So Barbara and I got together, and we took the papers that you had turned in requesting your appointments to the commission, and here they are. They're all in here. I got two there. I put them in here. Of course, they're having each going a different direction. Can't go the same way. Yeah, okay. In there you will find a letter from me with your committee appointments. I believe they are all what you wanted. Nothing new or surprising. You will also find in a sheet in there that has all the committee appointments, so you know where people are and what they are doing. So I'll read them at this point. We don't have everybody on, so we do have some to be determined, and that may mean that one of the Santa Rosa or the joint people will fulfill the to be determined, or somebody else will, don't know yet. Also, it looks like I've ended up as chair of a lot of committees That's in part due to the fact that the chairs have gone, they've retired and moved on to other things. So, Finance, Barbara McKenzie, she is the old chair. I understand that they will be doing new elections this month. Tom Hauser, Randall Neff, Andy Elkind. I'm still on it, but if we need to put somebody else on it, then that will be fine. I'll drop off because I have a lot of other things I can do. Advocacy, it's Deborah Doyle, myself, Paul Heavenridge, and Stephen Zollman. We can have another person on there if we choose, or if somebody doesn't want to be on there, that's okay. Again, I have been chair for the last 3+ years, yeah, almost the whole time. So we'll be electing a new chair. The revenue enhancement, we didn't put anybody on at this time because that committee is technically on hiatus. It was the one that worked with Measure Y, and hopefully the commission that is functioning when 23 or 24 comes up, about 2 or 3 years before 26 when the other sunsets, that they get up and running and people go on it and they take care of what needs to be done. In the meantime, the advocacy committee hopefully will be building a good bridge so that they have a solid place to work from. Ad hoc committees, which are limited time, single topic or project committees. The all-day lab, I'm on that. Somebody else is going to join me. Don't know who yet. We're kind of waiting again for Santa Rosa. Susan and I went to that meeting the other day. Commissioner Orientation and Training, myself, Barbara McKenzie, and Paul Heavenridge. Search Committee, myself, Barbara McKenzie, Jason Merrick, Randall Neff, and possibly a fifth person. And all we can have, we have 11 people, so the maximum we can have on there without changing the whole Brown Act rules is 5 people. And I'm saying this a lot for the new commissioners so that they understand what it is, what the limits are. The Foundation Commission is myself, Barbara McKenzie, and Jason Merrick. The JPA Commission Bylaws Review Committee is Deborah Doyle, Tom Hauser, and Barbara McKenzie. Standard Operating Procedures, myself at this point in time. We'll see what happens. We have 3 liaisons that we work with. The first one is a Library Foundation, and that's Jason Merrick, and he'll be going to the foundation meetings and then coming back and giving us reports on that. The Roseland Coalition is Stephen Zollman at this time. Maybe somebody else will be added to that, don't know for sure. Measure Y is appointed by the Finance Committee Chair, and the Measure Y person is the one that joins that group and the oversight group and works with them. So that are the committee appointments. Again, I apologize for the delay. We were trying to show some respect and work with a full commission, and didn't work out. So, and there is no rule, nothing that says we have to appoint them at any time. But we do need to get these committees up and running full force. And I apologize for the delay in doing it again. So, I think that pretty much does me in. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to the commissioner reports. Now moving on to director evaluation. Excuse me. There is no report. We have not met. Finance. Barbara.
I'll be very brief. We didn't present reports at our last commission meeting, so I have attached the report I would have submitted to the October meeting. It's, you can read it. Basically, we talked about the budget surplus and made some recommendations and so forth. Anyway, the meeting we just had, October the 15th, which was our October meeting, the main thing I'd like to point out is under monthly reports, I'd like to draw your attention that $750,000 to $750,000 OPEB deposits were noted, and these are the first of our 2 additional deposits after we adopted the OPEB policy. Very pleased with our being able to do that. They are called CalPERS Trust, but I want to make sure everybody understood that that is not CalPERS funds. That is specifically in this trust for the OPEB responsibility. Also, there's a draft budget schedule, and I'm sure CFO Neiman is going to talk about that tonight, but we do want to make sure, please look at schedule for 2019/20 budget preparations. You'll see that commissioners should submit their top 3 budget priorities to Jane Clickman by November 15th, and that's so at our next Finance Committee meeting, which is the following Monday, we will be able to consolidate everybody's priorities and come up with probably 3, like we did this year, to carry forward. You know, the commission's priorities are expressed through the budget, so we've got to make sure what your priorities are, whether it's hours, more programs, whatever it is. But please get your 3 budget priorities to Jane, and we'll get them reviewed at our next Finance Committee meeting. We also did relook at our committee roles and responsibilities, made a few modifications, and I have attached that here so you can look at the current role and responsibility of our Finance Committee. Thank you very much.
Okay, Advocacy Committee is next. It's pretty much all there. 2 things.
Please use your microphone.
Pardon?
Please use your microphone.
I am, but I'm looking at my paper. Sorry. Can't do 2 things at once. Because of the Director Search Committee doing the interviews on Monday the 12th, the Advocacy Committee is going to have to cancel its meeting. And so what I will do is I'll send out a survey monkey. If it works out, considering that we've got holidays this month, we'll have a meeting. If it doesn't work out, then our next meeting will be in December. One of the things I want to do is I want to introduce Ray Hawley. I don't know that anybody has introduced you yet. He is a new Community Relations Manager. I think that's what the title is, something like that.
In my report, which is fine, but I know Ray has, no, that's okay. But since you did, Ray has some remarks, so why don't you just come up and do that, Ray, if you don't mind.
I just saw you sitting there, and I'm thinking, nobody's introduced you yet, and this is advocacy, and you're going to get involved in that.
Chair Foxon and the Commission, thank you. Ray Hawley, I've been in the job for a week now, and every day I'm discovering more things I have to learn. Like a lot of community-based organizations, the library focuses on serving its communities, doing great things, and sometimes forgets to blow its own horn. So I'm here to help with that. Not only to illustrate the wonderful staff and dedicated work that the library does, but to help pave the way for the reauthorization of Measure Y. I'm also here to assist you. I have experience in government relations, and I'll be reaching out to all of you in the next few weeks to find out how I can help you strengthen your relationships with your cities and the county. So thank you for your service.
And thank you for joining us. Oh, one of the things we're working on in the Advocacy Committee is putting together a recruitment packet so that the mix-up that has happened in Santa Rosa will not be repeated. We'll hope to clarify it and have them have applications, papers, information so they can do it more smoothly. So that's another thing that the Advocacy Committee is continuing to work on. Okay, Foundation Liaison. We just appointed Jason, so he didn't go to the meeting, but I believe Susan did. Do you have anything you want to comment on? It's the foundation meeting.
I attended along with Lana Adluman, and we continue to have good discussions with them. We presented some proposals for possible funding for 2019 and are working with them on changing their special small grant project schedule to meet our schedule better. So we're sharing a lot of great information with them. They're also very excited about using some of our ideas in their year-end appeal letter.
Okay, Measure Y.
Well, we just heard from Measure Y, so
that's that.
That's that.
All righty. Moving on. SOPs, nothing to repeat now. There is one thing I would like to ask of the Bylaws Committee. You said that you were noting, and marking some differences between the bylaws and the procedures or something like that. When you get the procedures, as you get them listed, could you send them over?
We're making a list.
Okay, good. That's one thing I needed to know. Okay, the Director's Search Committee. Basically, we got together this afternoon. We had the application process closed, I believe it was the 26th, and Susan and Pam Derby from CPS and Suzanne Silva went through the applications and refined them. We had 54 applications, I believe it was. They refined them down to 15, and we spent this afternoon going through all of them. We've selected 10 to move forward. We'll start interviewing them next week on the 12th, hopefully, and the 13th. And then we'll have down, hopefully, 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there. And we're moving them on. We'll have the commission meet them on December 3rd, and hopefully soon after that have a final decision as to a director. So we're moving that forward very fast. Yes.
Could I just add that those of us who were in this meeting this afternoon were unable to go to the anniversary celebration at the Healdsburg branch, and we really all wanted to be there because it looked like a great party. So I did send my regrets to John Hopp, but anyway, I'm sure it was a great party. Sorry, wanted to go.
Okay, Foundation and Commission, there's nothing to report. The Bylaws Review Committee?
It's in writing. We have
okay.
been meeting. I have a written report. We've been meeting. We don't have any product to turn on to you, give out to you.
Nothing on the ad hoc commissioner and the all-day lab committee. Santa Rosa Lab has taken the lead on organizing an all-day lab, which they hope to have next spring or fall?
Yeah, next spring.
Next spring, yeah, okay. And they just had their first meeting on the 12th, and we began to lay the foundation. They want some information. You will be getting a Survey Monkey with, I think, 3 questions on it. As commissioners, they wanted some information from you with these 3 questions, so if you would answer them within a week, if possible, 2 weeks at the absolute outside, we would appreciate it. And there will be also one going out to the staff. So same thing, 3 questions, not very extensive, but enough to keep you moving. Okay, one thing I forgot in my commissioner report is when I was talking about chairs and all that kind of stuff, we deal with the library up here. We don't get down into the weeds of it. If something is happening, if you get a complaint or if somebody says something or you notice something is going on, you take it to that. You can take it to me, or you can take it to the director, or you can take it directly to the person and just say, hey, somebody told me this was happening. Take care of it. When the DIY kit idea came up, my partner told me about it. She had noticed it someplace. DIY kit is do-it-yourself. It's an energy and sustainability kit that you can check out. And I walked into Keo and I said, hey, this is an idea. And she said, good, I'll see what I can do with it. And I turned around and walked out. It was that simple. And that's what commissioners do. You might pass something on like that. If some heating isn't working or something, you go to Dave and you say, hey, Dave, the heating isn't working. Just wanted you to know. Thank you for taking care of it, and walk out. Because we don't always understand the complications and the little things that they're having to deal with and the kinds of challenges and different obstructions that they're having to deal with. So, and we don't need to, because we're worried about money and we're worried about bigger things. Anyway, so enough said there. Consent calendar.
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Okay, anybody second?
I second the motion.
Okay, McKenzie moved. Hauser seconded. Everybody in favor say aye.
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 Anybody against? Unanimously passed. Okay, we're on 10. So we did 10.1 already, which was the Y report. Now we're at 10.2, and this is a discussion of the proposal for either the 24-hour mini branch and the mobile library, and it's Sarah Bantrice, Lana Adelawan, I'll say your name right, and David. No, Vicky. It's close. Start with a T. So it's 10.2.
Good evening, Chair Foxen and members of the Library Commission. We are very happy to bring this report to you tonight. At your last meeting, you voted to spend $250,000 on a project to expand library service in Sonoma County. And we had given you two options at that time. It was a tough decision, and you asked us to come back with more information to help you make the best choice. But what we really want to emphasize to you tonight in our report is that there is no bad choice. Both of these would be great for Sonoma County, and we hope we can give you information that can help you decide. In fact, both of the projects relate very strongly to our strategic plan, particularly in these three goal areas. Both projects would meet community needs by providing library experiences outside traditional branches. Both projects would give patrons really exciting opportunities to discover and explore innovative services. And both projects, for best impact, would require working with community members and partnerships. There are many potential locations that could be served by either of these projects. This map shows our current libraries in blue, and then the other dots represent some potential locations. Those are based on our strategic plan, some of the underserved areas noted in that, as well as areas of the county that have very few library card holders, and also other places that we're already partnering for service. So when we're looking at this map and thinking about these possibilities throughout this presentation, just invite you to remember that the 24-hour mini branch would be one location, a fixed location, but it would serve the community 24/7. And if a project was successful in one place, it could be replicated elsewhere. The mobile library van, on the other hand, could travel to many different locations, but of course would be dependent on different schedules and timings of working with many sites. So we'll talk you through both of these, and then we'll have a chance for you to ask questions at the end, and then leave it to you to make a good decision.
Mobile library service is not a new service, and many of our patrons, especially those from our coastal communities, are still talking to staff today about the former bookmobile. This project will reestablish a valued service, but give it a 21st century spin. Mobile library service is evolving as modern libraries have evolved to go beyond just books and the physical walls of our facilities. This 25-foot vehicle could offer story times, STEM programs for kids and teens, internet access for those who don't have it at home, and technology support to seniors who may want to stay in touch with family but don't have the skills or a place to learn those skills in their immediate area. Imagine the mobile library as a full-service public library, but on wheels. We know when people see anything about the library, they get really excited. They love the library. With mobile service and our staff on board, we broaden the reach of the Sonoma County Library and give those that voted for increased services through the passage of Measure Y that direct service. The best service to communities is embedding ourselves in community, and we can't do that well without a regular presence in underserved regions. The mobile library van makes that possible, again, connecting our greatest resource, which is our staff, to the community at large. The possibility for partnerships in these unexplored areas are endless, and we will have a greater and measured impact on literacy across the county. We currently have our librarians loading up books in the trunk of their cars to bring library services out to students. Let's support staff with this resource and make it easier for them to do what they do best, which is serving the public and connecting them to the multitude of services and programs we already offer. With this project, we also have the opportunity to partner with other agencies that might catch a ride with us. Perhaps we bring a public health nurse on board for our baby story time, food bank volunteers to distribute or collect food for fines, disaster recovery specialists, or even one of our lawyers in the library. We can, again, multiply our impact by working with others to serve the community and being seen as a presence in the county at large. One of the greatest things about our existing libraries is that we are constantly changing to best meet the needs of our communities and actively searching to find those resources to help our community. The mobile library in its design can flex and change dependent on the area that we are serving that day. The mobile library truly is a full-service public service vehicle in that, number one, we can target multiple areas of the county with one vehicle and limited staff. Two, we can work with specific regions on the services needed for that region. And three, we can learn from residents in those regions how the Sonoma County Library can continue to meet the needs of all residents, not those that just walk through our doors. We know that technology infrastructure in rural areas of the county is not reliable and can be very expensive. Access to and familiarity with technology is sometimes, unfortunately, a requirement of modern day life. The mobile library would bring this service and staff familiar with those technologies where it is most needed. With access to technology, community members can sign up for health benefits, fill out census forms, register to vote, all free to them directly from their Sonoma County Library.
So right now in North America, there are about 930 library vehicles on the road. So that's bookmobiles and makerspace vans and other vehicles that take direct service into the public. So Lana and I have spoken with a number of libraries, and the vehicle that we think could serve our needs best here is a mid-sized vehicle, about 25 feet long. Inside, that's headroom of about 6.5 feet, so Commissioner Hauser, you would have to duck. This vehicle would work well for our staff because it would not require a commercial driver's license, but it would have the type of power and steering that we would need for traveling up the coast on our windy mountain roads and, of course, on the 101. As Lana mentioned, the van can be really customized inside. The standard right now is modular furnishings, which would allow the greatest flexibility. If it was fully loaded with books and materials, that would be about 1,000 items, which could be browsed on board, or they could come off the vehicle on carts. So think if we're visiting a senior center or a school, to be able to have that flexibility to serve our patrons on or off the vehicle. Or you could take all that furniture out, leave the carts back at the branch, and send the van out with toys and comfy floor seating to do your early literacy story time right on board. And these vehicles are accessible, either a ramp or a lift, which would allow everyone to visit. So your budget would cover the initial capital investment of the vehicle and customization, which would include data and power, and that would also cover fuel and routine maintenance for this fiscal year. The library materials, like books and DVDs, would be purchased from the additional surplus budget that you approved. And then we could look at grants and other existing line items for storytime kits, hands-on program supplies, or other materials to make a great experience on our vehicle. In terms of staffing this year, your staff from both countywide positions as well as branch positions would have the chance to take the van out to some initial locations to offer a menu of programs and outreach options as we begin to gather community feedback about what they'd like from their vehicle. And ongoing, we could continue with that sort of pop-up approach, or you might have the possibility to expanding to something like regular service, a traditional bookmobile route, or even a fleet of vehicles that could offer all kinds of programs and services. The mobile library van meets a crucial customer service goal from the strategic plan to get beyond the branch to flexible and temporary locations that meet local community needs. And fundamental to this goal and to library outreach is the concept of inclusivity and equity. The library meets you where you are, whatever community you're a part of. We come to your park, to your preschool, to your community center, the place where you work, maybe a parade or a fair that your family enjoys, maybe an evacuation center where you just long for some sense of normal in the chaos. Wherever we go, the mobile library van will offer the familiarity and delight of a trusted, loved library that offers inclusive and meaningful service to Sonoma County.
Now that's a hard act to follow. So I want to talk about the 24-hour mini branch. And this idea is available when you are, where you are, when you want it, any time of the day or night. Think of it like this. Think of it as a huge vending machine that is physically accessible, that has Wi-Fi, and that can hold about 1,000 items. Moving forward, like I said, the giant vending machine. You can browse the library's catalog with a touchscreen. You can check out materials with your library card, pick up your items on hold, pay your fines with a credit card or your fees. Use the onboard Wi-Fi to surf or download. Now, one of the things that I think is critical here is that this library has an initial operating cost. It also has an initial outlay cost, about the same as the mobile library. The idea is that the unit itself and the cover run about the same amount of money, and it'll have a fixed operational cost. The cost for operation will include Wi-Fi and electrical. Of course, you've got PG&E and also in this particular case, it'll probably be Comcast, I think, in most places. But again, the idea is you can't go wrong whichever thing you choose. Access is convenient for people wherever it's placed. You can place these in unserved areas or underserved areas and still, I think, have people really excited about them. I apologize. I'm really so tired. Anyway, but the 24-hour factor, I think, is a very big deal. These can be placed anywhere, and in fact, in San Diego County, these act as 4 branches of the San Diego County Library System. In Spokane recently, together with the Spokane City Library and and Walmart and a few other community foundations, they put together a branch that serves an area of the city of Spokane that didn't have a library, and they couldn't raise the funds to build a building. So the opportunity to put these in near community centers, housing complexes, shopping malls, train stations, airports, and other underserved areas of a community. The full-service library at a fraction of the cost is really what we're seeing here. And when they were thinking about this in San Diego County, they needed to put branches because of the burgeoning population, and they wanted them in places where people are gathering to try to get access to materials. So the convenient locations, you can download ebooks right on the spot. You can surf the web. Again, pick up your held items. And as far as the fixed operational costs, there is going to be an annual maintenance fee for this thing, just like there's an annual maintenance fee for our self-checkouts. So if you think about that, we have an annual cost there, the utility costs, and then What I think is interesting about this is that we're not talking about gasoline. We're not talking about any of the, maintenance costs on a vehicle. And we're talking about being part of an existing delivery route. So it's online with other things that we're delivering. The library IT team will maintain the onboard systems along with the annual maintenance with the company that sells these, or with the companies that do sell these. Again, grab a movie on the way home, surf the web, pick up held items 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, and again, I think you can see here, this is one of the 4 24-hour libraries in the San Diego system. And one of my staff helped me put this together. When you think about getting to the library and finding a place to park in downtown Santa Rosa where there's no parking or no free parking, this kind of thing can be placed in a parking lot where there is free parking, and all you need is electricity and be able to bring Wi-Fi to that location. Part of the package for these is really just the unit itself. It can be put together in hours, and it has a covering so that rain doesn't get down inside the computer systems and so forth. So I guess what I want to say is, again, to echo what these 2 folks have said, imagine this computer rendition of a 24-hour library in Sonoma County. So you can't go wrong, whatever thing you choose.
Yes, thank you both for the sort of perspective on both of it. But I think we heard loud and clear earlier tonight from those that took time out of their schedule without getting paid at all to come and let us know that if you're marginalized, it's everything to get to the service that you need. And so just putting down a permanent structure and saying, hope you can afford your bus fare to get here, is not the same as being able to have something and set in your mind when that van is going to pull up and be able to have a person behind it and be able to deliver exactly what you need. The concern I also have about the stationary thing is the fact that even though we don't have all the different translators at their respective branches, but at least there's a human there that you can get a sense of what their need is versus a machine that I'm pretty sure that machine is not going to have all the different dialects that's going to be needed.
It actually has about 17 different dialogues.
Okay, well, I can appreciate that, but we're in the service industry. And we hear all the time about what the human element is and what we bring to our communities. And I think going to this stationary type thing that's not going to be accessible is exactly the wrong message that we need to be sending to the community. Thanks.
Yes, I was, the other weekend, I was at the North Bay Science Fair, and the Marin County Free Library, which I have a history with over the years, had their bookmobile there, and it was wonderful to walk into that. And they're actually getting a new one, so they're going to be selling this one. But I understand that you're looking at a smaller van, the 25 foot, and I realize some of the mountain roads are a little harder there, but when you're looking at the different vans, was it? I know you can take the regular van chassis and expand that. It just seems like there's a lot more services that we could provide in a van if it was a little bigger, and taking in the consideration that it was, you have the mountain roads and all that. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the other services too is. The advertising is just amazing. Not to take away from the stationary kiosks, but I think this gives us great opportunities now that we have a full staff that can actually look at this, of opportunities of going with Kaiser as put their logo and help pay for the van. And I think we can get from the community, and this is what we've done in other library systems, where we got the community going in on the bookmobile. And so Kaiser having a logo on the side, or some other nonprofit that wants to be part of this could help pay for the van. Thus, we could get a bigger van, and we could get more services on that van. So I don't know. And thank you all for really looking into this. I know it's I've been on these committees looking at these bookmobiles, and there's so many choices out there. So I appreciate all the work you put into this. But I would look when we finally get our bookmobile, yay. I'd like to see if we can look at all the options to make this the best bookmobile in California. So that's what I have. And just one other quick thing: as you go around to these different facilities, and I'm not going to say anything about Roseland, but I think what's happening on the Board of Supervisors, and we talked about this before, is they're saying, okay, Roseland, but what about my district that needs another library? I think we can promote this bookmobile if it's big enough and has enough services, that this could be an interim library branch for the far-reaching areas in some of the other parts of the county. So not just western Sonoma, but in other parts. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Barbara. Yes, thank you for really detailed, excellent presentations. I appreciate it all. Answered most of my questions. I'm leaning to the mobile van. I particularly like, as Commissioner Zolman said, just the human touch. People love librarians and library staff, and it's just different, to go out there. I like what you said about that's a smaller size vehicle, so basically any staff doesn't have to have a special license. I hear what you're saying about a special super duper gigantic one, but you have a lot of more issues with who can drive it. And I like the flexible space for lending programs. A quick question about that is how many kids could get in the mobile van if we took everything out and they had story time in there?
I think from some of the information we've gotten from other library systems, I would say anywhere from 10 people, 10 to 15 on the inside. Part of the van, though, is, as we mentioned, that we could bring story time outside of the vehicle to fit a greater need.
Yeah. That was really cool. And I like the senior center idea. The ongoing cost of this, one of the other things, I don't know if I said this, but the visibility of seeing the library van drive all around, I love that idea. But this is something that maybe the Friends of the Library could help with some of the cost of the ongoing cost of it. It gives them something to really participate in and pay for special programming or giving away books or something like that. I think the Friends are really looking for something specific to get involved in. So anyway, I'm leaning toward the van. But I think both of them are cool, and maybe next year we could do the other one.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, Jason.
I'm sorry, but I just don't see the overriding purpose of a bookmobile, other than advertising on the side of a van and move people around. But I think the mobile, the permanent station has much more utility to it. You can access books out of it. You can Wi-Fi out of it. It's a 24/7 hour service. You can go there anytime at all. And it could be targeted collections, so you could put specialty books in there, videos, audiobooks. Everything is accessible at that location, and it gives a wow factor. I just think it has much more utility to it than a mobile van.
Okay, Tom, we'll start with you. You're closer.
We talked about why and what we promised to use with why money, and I think establishing a presence throughout the county is something we have to do. And I would say 1 or even 2 bookmobiles so that there's regular presence in the boonies of this county, which is probably half or more of the county is really just out there with hardly anybody or anything. And we need to reach out to those people. That's one of the things we promised, just as much as taking care of Roseland. I understand the concept of the fixed unit, and I think it could be very purposeful, especially when you have a place where you have population that's concentrated and growing. But what we're trying to serve is the diverse population that isn't really growing, but it's out there and we need to serve them. So that would be my thought. And the concept of a pop-up visit by the library van, I think you have to have regular schedules so people know you're going to be there at a certain time, because we're talking about going to areas with very low population, and you're not going to have a whole mall full of people that are just going to say, oh, here's the library, let's use it. You're going to be out there with very few people unless you have a fixed schedule. So those are my thoughts. I think if we go out to the coast, we go to the North County and things like that, if there is a small town with enough people around there, looking at a fixed facility might be something we could do sometime. I really think that might be a possibility, but I think we need to start with establishing a presence now throughout the county. Thank you.
Andy?
I'd like to thank all of you, first of all, for the great presentations. Obviously, a lot of thought and research went into this, and I have to say that I'm really excited about both of the ideas. That said, to me, and I think I'm agreeing with what Tom was saying a moment ago, the 24-hour mini branch feels like it would be great to have in a fairly busy area where there's a lot of people, and you know that there will be plenty of folks who want to take advantage of it. As I think about our county, 1,700 square miles with 500,000 people, and I think, Vicki, you had shared with us at a previous discussion that only about 30% of the population lives kind of along that 101 corridor where there's high-speed internet access. So I love the idea of getting out into the community, and I have to say that I have just personal, really fond feelings of a mobile library, because my mom used to go to the bookmobile every week, and she had advantages that some of the underserved members of our community don't. She had she was living in the suburbs, she had a car, but still it was easier for her to get to the bookmobile than to go to the library, which was only a few miles away downtown. So I feel like the opportunities to partner with organizations in various communities, whether it's preschools or community centers or senior centers, or, I feel like we could develop some really rich partnerships across the county, and I'm very enthusiastic about that. So although it's a tough call for me, I have to say I'm going to feel strongly that for the moment, the mobile library van is the better choice for us.
Any other comments? Deborah?
If we could afford 2 of the mobile vans, then I would say that we should get a mobile van and one of the singular units. But if we could only afford one of them, I'm sort of on the van side.
Okay. Anybody else? Any comments? Okay. So I need a motion.
I so move.
Move what?
What do you move? For the mobile van. How's that?
I second.
The mobile book.
Minivan.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor of a van?
Aye.
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 All those against?
Nay.
So there's 1 no, and the others were yeses. I can't count at this point in time. really.
Commissioner Foxen, could I add a comment?
Sure.
I would just really like to echo this advice that there's no, they're all good choices, and thank you, staff, for making the context of that. And I would just also encourage folks to think about the 24-hour mini branch as you do your budget thinking for next year, because it's certainly a possibility there. It's a very common, not very common, but I mean, they're all around the country now, and they also do really help serve, serving highly populated areas like possibly transit stations or something like that. It could reach a lot of people that we wouldn't normally reach as well. So I would just ask you to consider that for budget priorities for next year.
Okay, I made a note to myself to open it up for public comment, and I forgot. So is there any public comment in relation to this, the van or the mini? Okay. I'm sorry I did it backwards. Okay, so mobile library van. Thank you, Lana, Sarah, and Vicki. All righty, so we're moving on to 10.3, which is a revision in the schedule for the budget timeline thingy. Oh, there it is. Changes are, we're moving it from February and March to March and April. So that's one thing. The other thing is I want to remind you, Barbara mentioned it in her report. Commissioners, if you have, we would like your priorities, your budget priorities, your 3 budget priorities sent to Jane by November 15th, which is a week from Friday. I've got it right, yeah. Okay, so a week from Friday to, that is November 15th, isn't it? Okay. 3 budget priority goals. Just things you feel are important that you want to focus on. Doesn't necessarily need to be an item, it could be something larger, like hiring people or
Firing people.
Yeah, hours, books, continuing to work on the infrastructure, you know, whatever you feel is important. I want 3 of them, 1 to 3. Yes, Andy.
Small point, but I believe that the 15th is next Thursday.
Thursday. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So, do I have a motion to accept?
I so move that we approve the revised schedule for our meetings next year.
Second. Seconded? Okay. Hauser moved and Elkind seconded. So all those in favor say aye.
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 All those against? All righty. Said and done. Okay, there are no action items by resolution, so we're into the interim director's report.
So in light of the time, I'm not going to go over the report. I want to thank our HRC supporters who have stood with us so long and get to their report as soon as possible. But I'd also like to ask Morgan, who's been sitting here for a while, to talk briefly to you about the Sonoma County Reads book. So this is Morgan Pershing, our Adult Services Administrator.
Hello, Commissioners. It's like past my bedtime, but that's all good. This is very interesting. Jane has copies of Kindred to pass out to you. So you each get your own copy unless you already have one. If you came to our staff day, you might have gotten one then. So that is the Sonoma County Reads book. And the library system is holding 7 book groups in November and December around this book. And this book is also SRJC's Work of Literary Merit. So we have partnered with them in holding. They're holding their own events, and Sonoma State is also holding events. So we've all partnered, and all of the events are on the Facebook page, which is Sonoma County Reads. I just wanted to apprise you of this that's happening and invite you all to go to a book group. It's an amazing book. Have any of you read it? One? Well, I recommend it highly, but you don't have to read it. And if you start it and you don't like it, you don't have to finish it. But I just wanted to apprise you of Sonoma County Reads, and it's been a really fun partnership so far. So thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. So anything else with the staff, or are we on to the financial?
Just one other quick, this is one other quick thing. I'm not sure if Ken and Dave's gone home was going to mention this, but in Dave's report in terms of the facilities, we were excited to share with everyone that some capital improvements for the Guerneville branch, which is owned by the county, have been introduced into their capital plan. So we'll keep you apprised of that, but it'll be great to have the Guerneville Friends and the group attend some meetings on that as we learn more about the schedule for the capital budget. So we were excited to see Guerneville included in that. And Oh, yeah.
I got it on now. Ken.
Hi. There wasn't any financial reports in the last commission meeting, so there are 2 months worth, August and September, in this packet. Nothing really out of the ordinary going on. The biggest thing Commissioner McKenzie noted in her Finance Committee report, that $750,000 deposits into the OPEB trust in both August and September. And there will be one more made in January. So unless there's any questions about the financials, that's my report.
Anybody have any questions? Okay. Thank you, Ken. And at this time of night, thank you for keeping it short. All righty, where are we? Okay, and we've done 12.3, so we're down to Catherine, 12.4. And we appreciate you hanging in there. Are you still awake?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Susan said and thank our members of the Historical Records Commission who have been waiting to express their support and opinions for our presentation tonight. I'm very happy to introduce to you Catherine Reinhardt, our History and Genealogy Manager from Sonoma County Library. I hope you have had the pleasure of meeting her, and I encourage you to sit up and perk up because this is a very interesting item here at the end of a long night. Thank you, Catherine.
Push. All right, thank you. And I've met most of you, but not everyone, so this is a great opportunity. And yes, I'm still awake because the archives are something that really excite me, and I'm really pleased to be here tonight to share a little bit about the Sonoma County Archives and the Historical Records Commission. And as mentioned, we have 2 members of the Historical Records Commission in the audience, Eric Stanley in the blue, and Steve Lovejoy. And in the middle there we have John Schubert, who is on the Guerneville Lab and a West County historian and very much a supporter of the archives. Okay, as many of you know, the Sonoma County Library was officially designated as the county archive in 1965 by resolution of the Board of Supervisors. The idea was that when the new library was going to be constructed in Santa Rosa, there would be ample room to house an archive of county documents. For a number of years, what we know today as closed stacks served that purpose, while some Sonoma County record departments held on to their records. The archives is a treasure trove of items that document the history of our county. The archives hold many of Sonoma County's earliest court, naturalization, and tax records, as well as Board of Supervisors minutes, road petitions, architectural drawings, school records, grand jury reports, land surveys, oaths of office, aerial photos, and much more. The county archives are an important ingredient in the collective memory of our community. Certain archival records have a value that extends far beyond the period during which they served some legal, financial, or administrative purpose. A significant segment of the records provide information on land values and ownership, transfer of titles and encumbrances on real property. Still others are vital to administrators as evidence in matters of litigation or as keys to the interpretation of public policy and planning. And that became very clear following the fires of October 2017, where we saw an uptick in the number of items being requested from the archives for those dealing with recovery efforts. As you can imagine, over the years, the library and the county began to run out of room to store all the archival materials. In 1979, the Sonoma County Historical Records Commission was created by the Board of Supervisors. The mission of the commission is to foster and promote the identification, preservation, access, and use of Sonoma County historical records. In 1981, this commission reported to the Board of Supervisors that an archives building was needed. In 1995, the County Board of Supervisors authorized moving all archival materials to a 3,800 square foot portion of the county's former juvenile detention facility at Los Guillicos, which is located 9 miles east of downtown Santa Rosa. The library entered into a 3-year lease with the county, paying $1 a year in rent. That lease has been extended repeatedly since 1995, with the current expiration of March 2020. The location and physical condition of the archives makes them difficult to manage. And speaking of location, it's a bad location. The Nuns fire came within 440 yards of the archives. The photo there to my left is basically the view from the front door of the archives looking out at Hood Mountain, which is pretty much denuded of its trees at this moment. Now the building, having survived the fire, is in a flash flood mudslide zone. Acknowledging the imminent danger of fire and now flooding, the library hosted a disaster planning workshop last November for those who care for cultural collections. At the workshop, we created disaster response plans and developed hands-on skills on how to salvage wet items. This summer, Barclay Ogden, recently retired Director of Library Preservation at UC Berkeley and coordinator of the California Preservation Program, visited the archives and prepared a preservation assessment. The assessment confirmed that the archives are vulnerable and are being stored in a dangerous location. In terms of planning for disaster, we know how to salvage wet items, although I hope I never have to do it, but you can't salvage burnt materials. The report made the recommendation to move the most important, most vulnerable archival materials back to the central basement and or the annex. This would allow for temperature-controlled environment, better security, and much better accessibility for staff and the public. Because library administration and other support services have moved to Rohnert Park, this is a good time to consider this recommendation. Thank you, Commissioners, for approving funds at your October meeting that will allow library staff to engage a space planner to help us make the best decision about how to move and store the archives at the Central Library. We invite you to read and look over, We invite you to read and look over the preservation needs assessment included in your commission packet to learn more about the recommendations and process. Also in your commission packet, we invite you to look over the new strategic plan from the Historical Records Commission. The HRC, of which I am a member as the designee of the library director, is advocating for a permanent archives facility that is suitable to hold the collection and is accessible to the public. The recently adopted HRC strategic plan recommends convening a Sonoma County Archives working group to clarify the library and the county roles and responsibilities. Tonight, we are requesting that the Library Commission join the HRC in presenting this strategic plan to the Board of Supervisors and asking for their support in establishing a working group. The archives are a unique resource. As stewards of this collection, the Sonoma County Library owes it to the public to ensure its long-term preservation and access. The archives are irreplaceable and will continue to reward researchers in ways we cannot necessarily foresee today. We need a library commissioner or commissioners who will champion the archives. I invite you to see the wonderful treasures. I know some of you have been out there, but come back again, and I'd love to show our new commissioners what we have out there. Dates for tours are available. I'm happy to answer any questions, and then I do know that our three members of the public here may have a few words that they'd like to share as well.
Comments from us first? All righty.
I have been out there, and it's interesting that we'd have so many records that are so important and having such a poor facility as you mentioned, and I can't remember. Originally, it seemed like the last time you gave a report on this to the commission that there was some money involved where the county was paying for some of this, and then that went away. I can't remember.
Well, initially when the archives was located at Los Guilicos, the county did provide, I think it was $65,000, and that was to move the materials from the various county departments from the library out to Los Guilicos and pay for the initial cataloging. Since that time, as far as I'm aware, no funding has been provided by the county either for the continuance of maintaining the collection, cataloging it, making it accessible, but also the county continues, different county departments continue to send new materials over to be accessioned, and they also request boxes that our delivery staff is moving back and forth.
So just to follow up on that, so I haven't completely read your recommendations, but in the recommendations, is it would it be logical to say that maybe we go after some sharing of the costs with these organizations in the county that do keep sending material and to help pay for a new facility?
So what we're looking at right now, and with the money that you approved at the October meeting, what we're really looking at is sort of an interim or a midterm solution to this problem. We don't want to continue to store these valuable materials in Los Guilicos for the obvious reasons, and we know that ongoing there is a need to clarify the role that the county plays in this in terms of the funding for the staff that do the processing and cataloging, as well as funding for a permanent facility. I know that it has been mentioned as part of the county's, future county campus that is someday coming in the future. And so I think a key role that we would look for right now too is just how to keep this on the board's radar and work with the right staff of the county to make sure it's not neglected. One of the things that Barclay Ogden noted in his report and his assessment of the archives is that there's really an out of sight, out of mind problem right now. And we do think that if we were able to move these materials to Santa Rosa, they would be a lot more accessible, and that hopefully could draw more attention as well. But there is that need for a higher level communication from the commission to the board and staff-wise as well to really clarify this.
Yes, I've been out there too. It's fascinating and underappreciated, and I really appreciate all the work that went into this. This is just fantastic. The photo layout, your verbal, oral report, and then Mr. Ogden's recommendations all just beautifully laid out. And this has been an item of frustration for a really long time. These are, again, the county's materials that the library staff, the library is paying for to go get and bring back, I mean, for the most part. So it's really, as you said, out of sight, out of mind. I think it's a great opportunity for our new county commissioner, commissioner representing the county, Deborah Doyle, to get involved and champion. I'm happy to help in any way I can. It's a critical issue. I was kind of involved when the fire thing happened and helped our interim director, Tracy Gregg, try to alert the county people, hey, it's out there. So, I kind of put a lot of adrenaline into it too. So anyway, I'm really glad that this is just beautifully laid out. It tells us what we need to know, and I'm hoping that we will move forward with all immediacy. I also appreciate the members of the Historical Record Commission for coming down here and staying through all these hours. I thought it was important. It's important to see that we're not just talking about the library's responsibility for this, but it's the Historical Records Commission's participation and work with this also. So thank you.
Jason?
Question regarding the preferred location to relocate temporarily. Would it be the annex or would it be the central library basement?
It could be both. That's why we actually have budgeted that money for the archives consultant to help us make a good decision, just in terms of identifying what's most vulnerable and most important to move, and then also how to best use that space, maybe options in the basement for compact shelving or working space in the annex, since we do have that space opened up because of our move.
There's not a preferred one over the other right now?
So the consultant will help us identify that. And the request for information for proposals went out last week, and we have a pretty quick timeline on that. So hopefully we will have that report within the next 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
Stephen?
Yes, just briefly, thank you also for everybody who stayed, people in the back as well. And I'm glad that the consultant's going to weigh in, because personally, I think it's an answer for a lot of things that I'm personally getting in the community about this huge expense of having to move all staff down to this very expensive place down in Rohnert Park. So to be able to rationalize the fact that that was necessary to provide the infrastructure and backbone to serve everything that we need to do in the county, but then also that opened up space in the below to safeguard our precious material and our history. So that's where I'm hoping it lands, but thanks.
Tom?
Always talking about money and getting people to pay for the services. I think if these are county government records, we need to be expecting them to pay something, because even keeping a roof and everything and heated, that costs money.
Anybody else? Okay, this is a discussion item, so I would just like to make a recommendation that Deborah and possibly the joint, whenever we find out who she may be, or he. And I mean, I'd be willing to get together with Catherine and form a plan
how we might move forward to contact the board members, et cetera, whatever we need to do to get this on the road. So, and does everybody agree that that's a good plan to move forward with? Thumbs up. Thumbs up? All righty. Oh, I know. I always forget the public. I'm sorry. Yes, public comments, please.
Well, thank you. My name is Stephen Lovejoy. I am on the Historical Records Commission, but I'm also president of the Sonoma County Genealogical Society. We have over 200 members county-wide, and our organization is 51 years old. Since its beginning, we've been indexing, organizing, and preserving Sonoma County records, whether they were at the library or at Los Gilicos, providing much more public access to these records. So we have a vested interest in how they're stored and where they're stored. And I would urge you to go out and see them if you haven't. And I appreciate the commissioners who have gone out there and seen the condition that our precious historical records are being kept in. They're like an ugly stepchild. We have to remember that these records, even though they're Sonoma County records, they're also a special collection of the library, and they should be treated with respect, just like the books and CDs and everything else that the library provides. As you saw from the presentation, the Los Gilicos facility is totally inadequate to store historical records. There are no environmental controls out there. It's dirty and dusty and 9 miles away from any staff that can manage them. The fires of last October was a huge wake-up call. We could have lost all of those records very easily. I'll put on my hat as a historical records commissioner now. Last May, the commission created this strategic plan that is in your packet. In that strategic plan, we suggested that a working group on the archives be created. And we're trying to partner with you to go before the Board of Supervisors, who has the authority to form this working group. And I would urge you to partner with us and to form this, to go to the Board of Supervisors with this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? John?
Good evening. I'm John Schubert. I'm past president of the Sonoma County Historical Society, on the board of directors still, and also with the Russian River Historical Society. I've been collecting history since 1955, thank goodness for high school. And I happened to be fortunate enough to be hired by the Sheriff's Office in 1965, prior to the movement of the Sheriff's Office and the tax collectors, et cetera, from the old courthouse downtown. When we moved out to the current location, the Sheriff's Office started dumping records into Stateside flatbed trucks. There were also tax records. There were documents, petitions to the Board of Supervisors when they were sitting as road administrators. I happened to be luckily enough off one day to follow the truck, and these documents were hauled to Pocket Canyon and burned because we didn't have in the county an archives. They just kind of looked at them, oh, these old, who wants to save these? Some of these items of late have showed up on eBay. It's the worst thing I should have ever done was join eBay. I've got a hole in my pocket. And I recognize the elements that have been showing up, books, et cetera. I managed to go out to Pocket Canyon dumps and saved a tax record. I've saved old courthouse documents, letters, business cards, et cetera, which I have given to the historical section at the annex. We need to preserve these documents. The few documents I managed to save have helped me write in my various 5 books, but we need these. And there's also been books that I have, and tax records and other records that belonged at one time to the county that I have tumbled across in bookshops, eBay, et cetera. They're beyond my jurisdiction of the river, Lower Russian River area, as my expertise, and have given them to the history annex because they were out there floating around and they belong in the county. Please, please find the funding, do anything you can to preserve our records. Some of these are originals and only documents with our pioneers' signatures on petitions. They're extremely valuable. I can't drive that hard enough. We need to preserve our histories. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, one more. Popping up. Eric.
Good evening. My name is Eric Stanley. I'm, in addition to being a member of the Historic Records Commission, I'm also the curator of history at the Museum of Sonoma County. And I just would like to reiterate what John and Steve said, and I think in fact, some of those documents that went floating around ended up in the museum's collection as well, so they're kind of scattered hither and yon, and so I think that's an issue. But I think what was brought up a couple times in the report. Oh yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, how nice. Who knew?
I think they lowered it for the little girl.
I just wanted to reiterate what came out of the assessment of the archives, and particularly the idea of these documents being out of sight, out of mind. I think from what everyone is saying, it's kind of self-evident that they're important and that they're vital and that they form kind of the foundation of our stories and what we are and all of those things. And so I think what the commission could certainly help us do, and what I'd urge you to do, is help alleviate that issue of out of sight, out of mind. And I really think that's what kind of we're asking for, is to increase the profile and start talking about this in a way that befits the importance of the documents that are there. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So we have a plan. You and possibly me. Going to get together. Yes, Jason. Pardon? Okay. Okay. All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the 3 of you for waiting this long and getting through all of this. Yeah. Okay. Anybody have any agenda items at this point in time that they would like on the next agenda? Stephen?
Yes, well, I appreciate the comments earlier about any one of us speaking on behalf of the full commission. Maybe I'm just really dense because I just don't get really the fine line between providing information and making comments on policy. And where I'm sitting now, this whole definition of what we consider to be within or on the outside of Measure Y, it's extremely important, at least to me, that we speak together with one voice. Along those lines, I would also like to have more discussion about how we respond to emails that we get from the public about various issues. Right now, I'm getting emails from Roseland, and I think that's what you were referring to, Madam Chair, to me about responding. It is important for us to respond with one voice, and I'm not in favor of having that voice be the chair or the chair and the vice chair. So I would like a discussion of maybe that being referred, if any one of us get specific emails of concern, to the advocacy committee or a policy committee, or I don't really care, but I'm not okay with having one person or two people putting out information, bordering on policy of very touchy issues on behalf of all of us. I'm just not all right with that. So I want a discussion of that at some point.
Okay. That may be more appropriate rather than in a commission meeting. It might be more appropriate in one of our retreats. And that actually should be done in a retreat, and we need to do one. Again, it's been one of those items that has been shuffled forward, training and orientation, because of not having everybody on board. So be patient, I hope. Okay, any other items? Okay, and I realize it's late. I thank you all for staying so long. Am I supposed to do something else?
If you could name the date and time of the next meeting.
Time, okay. No, we changed that, yes. Paul was just asking about the newsletter information, and we're doing that a little differently. And
That's
right
Ray's project. That's going to be Ray's project to work on that.
Good. Okay, so the next meeting is December 3rd at 6 p.m. Not 6:30, but 6 p.m. this time. And so we will see you then. And so with that, I believe the meeting is adjourned. And thank you all again for staying so late.